Welcome to another episode of the Never-Ending Panel, where the discussion and the plunder continues. Our guests today are the intimidating Eitan Collin, a great man, the wise and noble Charles Lee Jackson II, and a devastating Danny Collin. And over there is the beautiful, the charming, the challenging, the talented, and technically sophisticated sound man Tim. Tonight's panel topic is...
Sex in space! Space! The damn monkey talked. Has there already been sex in space?
I don't know.
Well, you're
I
the
was
moderator.
asking you.
You're the moderator.
I'm the moderator. That's why I got the moderator job, so I wouldn't have to talk. Charles Lee Jackson II. You're an expert on almost everything. What do you think?
Ever since that time that I was at the International Spaceport and I saw all those Hare Krishna guys, I knew there was sects in space.
Oh, sects in space.
You asked.
Oh.
And it's like, and Forey isn't here to defend himself, so somebody's got to pick up the slack.
That's debatable. Eitan.
I think there's been sex in space for decades. Because when people think about sex in space, they think, has a guy and a girl fooled around. But let's face it, they've been sending up these very strapping, testosterone-filled guys in little tin cans in space for decades. And you're telling me that not one of them has paired up with another one in all these decades, Russian and American,
right,
and fooled around? No. I'm willing to bet you there's been sex in space, and the first sex in space was between two guys. Deal with it, suck on it, forget it, it's over.
Here's my take on that, if I have permission from the pirate.
Go. Please.
Anytime a guy has sex, everybody knows about it. So I'm assuming that if one guy actually managed to have sex in space and be the first guy to have sex in space, he couldn't keep that a secret, whether it was the Russian or the American, and subsequently we'd all know about it. So I'm going on a limb, whatever,
I can support
and
that.
saying that I don't think that there actually has been sex in space yet.
If I ever had
unless,
sex,
of course, you
everyone
call,
would know it.
whacking off sex in space. In that case, there's probably been plenty. Michelle!
I think there has had to be, because we have attractive young women and very strapping young men in the prime of their life, perfectly healthy, living months at a time up at the space station. You're telling me nothing happens to alleviate the tension and the boredom?
What happens in space stays in space.
I think they work while they're up there. It's just a sort of suspicion in my mind that they have these experiment things.
It is fairly regimented, their time schedule up there, even on the space station. Certainly, you can make an argument, Michelle, that in the space station would be one of the places that they could. And in fact, a married couple did go up into the space station, a U.S. couple, and the only reason that they allowed
That's
it was
evidence against it. They were
had
married.
There you go. They had just gotten married prior to, and they allowed it. So that might be the closest that we have to the possibility of it happening. It's it's not as big as you think. What's that?
A married couple are in a space station. They just got married and they didn't fool around. If they were there long enough for the 3 days of motion sickness to go away, then heck yeah, they were fooling around.
I'm thinking the guy would have bragged to at least one of his friends. Hey,
if they didn't, I've lost all faith in humanity.
Okay. So, by the way, I picked up something here from the internet, which is pretty funny. This question raises the question, would sex in space be any good? Recent research suggests it would not. For one thing, zero gravity can induce nausea, a less than promising sign for would-be lovers. Astronauts also perspire a lot in flight, meaning sex without gravity would be like would be hot and wet, surrounded by small droplets of sweat. In addition,
a good thing.
Okay, people normally experience lower blood pressure in space. Blood pressure in space, which means reduced blood flow, which means, well, you know what that means. So, and then I looked at some other things. Like how would you have sex in space? And apparently, it can be
I believe there are
quite dangerous
ways
to have sex
around
in space.
All these problems.
Well, that's for sure. When it comes to having sex, there are
I
certain...
can't get technical here, or my entire contribution would be bleeped. But there's ways. Besides,
Okay.
yes, have you done?
I think...
Have you ever tried it standing up in a hammock?
Funny you
It's an
mention that.
experience. You need special rigging. And talking of rigging, have you ever done it in the rigging?
You would definitely need special rigging in space because just one wrong thrust, as it were, would send a body flying into the bulkhead, into all sorts of areas.
If you tie them together.
Clearly,
Actually,
you
the
need
thrust-
a very large rubber band that will go around both partners so that...
You're not off on that.
so
By
when
the
they
way,
go, they just one
Actually,
float apart.
the thrust wouldn't, because the thrust would be reactionless. However, let us just say that
Depends
the
what you're thrusting
however,
at.
let's simply say that the climax would probably cause some interesting propulsion.
I think I saw that in one of the
It's
scary
not as
movies.
much as people think. You don't get as much mass emitted.
Speak for
In
yourself.
space, a little goes a long way.
All right. Well, those of us who have high production in this regard can rent themselves out as zero-gravity tugs.
great.
Slow but steady.
I'm sweating over here.
Yeah, and I don't see
Right.
droplets floating around either. I think we all have this notion that it would be a lot of fun to have sex in space, and people, there's the Mile High Club,
Not for the
Well,
first 3 days.
think of the
But,
possibilities.
Yeah, but the Mile High Club, everybody in Denver is in the Mile High Club.
Right, that's true. I
Listen,
suspect
there's
that
one
sex
thing,
in
you know-
space is going to be a
I guess
huge
I am too, then.
industry. I just don't think that the vehicles by which
Think of
people
it,
have
think
done
of it.
lately or in the past 30
you
or 40
don't-
years have really
we're
been
out of
very
time.
accommodating. Nope, that's her saying.
She has a question.
She has a
you
comment.
have a
Oh,
comment.
Sound Girl.
Yes.
Okay. You don't want to stand in front of me, do you? Okay, thank you. Okay, anyway,
Get out of the way.
basically, I'm thinking if we're going to talk about the 21st, 22nd, 23rd century, eventually we're going to colonize, despite our government. So, I mean,
Our
if you're
government
going
will
to send men
gloriously
and
lead
women
the
in
way.
space,
No question about that. So I think that's for sure. If you're going to be going on long journeys and you're sending men in space and women in space, you will definitely be having sex in space. I don't think that's an issue. I think the question is, in the capacity in the past 40 years in the small little spaceships in the shuttle, possibly, as Michelle said, in the space lab or space station itself, has there already been sex in space?
Yes,
I
there
just
has
think
been
a guy
sex
would
in
have blabbed
space.
about it. I can't believe a guy would not have blabbed
In
about
the
it. getting laid in
1960s,
space.
an astronaut saying he had gay sex, they'd shoot him.
Well, not gay sex.
Of course, they'd shoot him. So he's not going to admit it. But yeah,
He
it's
wouldn't
happened.
admit it.
It depends on whether real life mirrors fiction. I mean, consider Dale Arden is still a virgin, and she's been to outer space a whole lot. Now, are
very good
real
looking
women
alien
like
stuff.
Dale Arden? I mean, except for Lois Lane, are real women like Dale Arden?
I wish I knew. So,
that was a conversation stopper.
Wow, yeah.
Well, the conversation stops.
on that conversation.
So
Right, so,
Dale
but-
gets
but
to be a
think of it.
virgin, but
What-
Flash isn't.
Well, no, Flash knew Princess Aura. Hubba hubba.
Ah, okay.
and yeah, if you're in space, right, you're not on the, when you're on the ground, right, you got have one surface on the ground, so there's no space for someone else to come in around there. But if you're floating, people can get around each other.
Our executive producer's asking us to reach a climax of sorts.
I don't.
I mean,
I'm not going to respond to that.
I'll have what she's having.
So that's been the discussion. I think it was stupid, but it was fun anyway. Thank you all very much.
H.I., give your little.
Right. Oh,
I'm gonna give my
it
spiel.
made Arlene nervous.
Arlene matches
That's
the
a
color of
start.
her blouse.
If
My
you feel
goodness.
that we've reached our end prematurely, let us know by
speak for
commenting
yourself.
below. And if you think that we hit it just right, let us know down below.
Zero G.